I hear your critique of Obi, or maybe not Obi as a person, because I like to distinguish between Obi himself and the movement, or the obedient, who some would say have built a cult following around, Obi, to use the zigzagist, analogy again. But isn't that a charge that would carry some weight if it were laid at the feet of Shoere, for instance, and say that people have built a cult-like following around Shoere, and that in fact that's perhaps is what is most of the turn-off for people who would want to keep a distance from the AAC?
Hi listeners. So in this episode, which is our interview with Kunle Wizeman, we had a few technical problems and you may hear some buzz and vibration here and there, but we hope you still enjoyed the episode. Listening.
We are joined by Kunle Wizeman Ajayi, who is a Nigerian trade union leader and former chair of the Lagos branch of the African Action Congress. Kunle Wizeman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Said.
Yeah, it's a delight. We've crossed paths on many occasions and have had the opportunity to share one beer at least in various forums. So it's nice to talk to you here. I thought we'd start maybe with some more kind of contextual questions. So to begin, can you tell us a bit about your own background and how you came to socialism, and then maybe a little bit about AAC, when and why you joined AAC?
I grew up as a son from a family that is very political as well as religious. So my family had been in the old action group. Our grandfather, our patriarch, had been a 3-time councillor on the action group and UPN. So it was quite close to Wizeman and Awolowo, including my grandmother. So I lived with them, I grew up with them, so had been in terms of the progressive ideas. So when I also was with my parents too, in October in Ondo State, my father too was an activist of the AD area, the Alliance for Democracy. From SDP to AD, they were part of the June 12 struggles. I actually saw the first protest when my father led one against electricity outage. So since then, I've always felt that human rights had been listened, because my dad exposed me more to Fela Anikulapo Kuti, to Bob Marley, to Lucky Dube and the likes. And I actually fell in love with Fela at a very early age. The AD, Alliance for Democracy struggle, was more of Pan-Africanist and more of also liberal social welfareism. And so it's kind of saying capitalism can be reformed. So in my grandfather's library, I've been reading radical peace. But when my grandfather died and his library was transferred to my father's house, I read the Communist Manifesto. So from then, I've been having some knowledges of Marxism. And then when I got to the university, it became a boom, because Obafemi University had a lot of ideological groups. All of them started engaging us. At the point when I read more of Communist Manifesto, read Socialism, Utopian or Scientific, read a lot of peace, and as a part 1 student, and from my pre-degree days, I used to go into the main university to join students in protests. And so I've read a lot. And the June 12 period was all the time we were glued to TV. My father was anti-military, and so it's been a great radical background. But growing up too, they become much more liberal than they used to be. Yeah. When I was quite radical. So that one narrated happened to all of us for Nigeria. Our parents made us fight for before we go say, now before you go fight to my son, no stay for front, no stay for back, just go stay for middle. That kind of, yes. It's because the implementation of the structural adjustment program for a very long time, since 1995, has forced back the social norm, has forced back the radical perspectives of people. And that is why the implementation of the harshest economic policies by the capitalist ruling class has two sides of a coin. It could lead to revolt. At times, it could also lead to people getting so retrogressive and submissive.
Yeah.
So that is what Anthony Gramsci, what can make sense of what the Gramscian theory has been saying. So if when I was in the university, we were very rich in ideological training because I joined the Congress of Progressive Youth after we started the Touch Advocate, when we felt that the ideological groups were not supposed to be having infighting, and that then we had the Democratic Socialist Movement. We had the Congress of Progressive Youth, which was a front organization for the May 31st movement that later became the Socialist Workers Movement. And we also had the Paysetters movement, which was also a front group
I know you're still coming to the AAC question, but can you give us a bit of a time period for when these groups you're describing, like what kind of time period were these groups forming?
Yes, these groups have been like on Nobel Paper Law University for long, since the late 70s or so.
Okay.
And then from like May 31st movement was from 1989, probably. So Congress of Progressive Youth was formed in 1997. You get it? I can't say the year DSM was formed, but I know that they moved from SCAP, to becoming a DSM.
Right.
Different labor militant, you have labor militant, from militant to labor militant.
But then you encountered these groups during your time in university.
Yes, when I got to the university, I met all of these groups.
Right.
I met the Democratic Socialist Movement. I met Congress of Progressive Youth. I met the Paysetters movement. They were the top three. It was actually DSM pays a copy, and then you have some other groups too that were more quite liberal. That, and then you also have some that were Pan-Africanists. Like for the Pan-Africanist, the one that was formed by the late Akin Willade Africa, that was killed in OAU in 1999. That's the African Forward Movement, AFOM. You get it? We had AFOM. We also had one other very liberal organization. And then later on, Onyinye Gandhi Chukwunyere, the current spokesperson of the presidential campaign of Omoyele Sowore, also formed the Progressive Student Agenda, that's PSA, which later produced, almost within a year, produced the president of the student union, the president of Davidson Olajuwon. So I got to become a socialist. So I'm getting outside, we were able to move and, try to join a political party. In the university, I was secretary of the Labour Party. When we were in the university, ideological group joined the Labour Party. And that was from 2006 to 2007, 2008, 2009. We were in the Labour Party campus. Then it was part of the national campaign for mass-based Labour Party, led by the communists that were having entryism in the Labour Party in Lagos, and also from Babai's entryism through the SWM. Get it, and his works in the labor at the national level. So we partook so much that Ashola Akinbinu was chair, I was secretary in Onwey campus. So we were able to go back to votes too, especially when Mimiko contested in Ondo State. As National Association of Ondo State students, we intervened. We adopted the Labour Party, and he won that election. And so, he was able to do one or two. On education, healthcare performed very excellently to a point when you look at the standard of the neoliberal standard. But he now left to join the PDP when he saw that the labor movement, the labor bureaucracy was going to go to endorse the APC. So that derailed the government in Ondo State to the extent that workers' salary were being owed. So lessons from that made some of us to move into the NCP or get into Lagos. We were active too. But for us, since Ghani had left, a lot of people who are taking over the NCP. had a lot of retrogressive ideology, and we didn't have that capacity to be able to intervene completely at a national level except in Lagos. And luckily, with the wave of 2016 from the Occupy Nigeria Part 2 struggles, which was codenamed the two-faced protest. Enough is enough, two-faced protest. Yes, which we intervened very completely. There was a battle, a discussion in the United Action for Democracy then, when I became General Secretary, when people were saying we shouldn't join. We had to move out. I led the Secretariat out to say, okay, for the sake of this struggle, we're going to be doing movement against austerity and hardship, and we had people from a lot of other places. Ayadele Milui was coming from the dissidents in the rebels in DSM. We got people from the Community for Women Initiative led by Kunle Ajayi, people from the CDHR. So and the NCP Lagos, we were able to massively mobilize and join that action. Happily, that was where I met Oyele Sowore again, since I met him in 2006 at the June 12th protest. So we met again. He was even the one who said, okay, if you guys are going to be coming, we are going to be publicizing. He sent Sahara reporters to cover our press conference. We were just about 7. It was massively plastered everywhere. And so it mobilized for that protest. So we participated in that protest together, and that was where Sowore said publicly that the only way Nigeria can change is a revolution. And I did a report on that, and since then, the trajectory of our work from the NSAS movement, then we also have the Alliance of Nigerian Students Against Neoliberal Attacks, led by Banji, Angels, and Juwon. Whereas the influence one of the fact that he has the history of being a very popular student leader during the June 12th struggle, the most popular student union president at that time, and who also metamorphosed to becoming the first president of the Congress of Progressive Youth nationally, where they were leading in response to the 1 million march of Daniel Kanu. They led the 5 million march in Lagos in conjunction with this campaign for democracy led by Chima Obani. So they were the ones on the field as at that time, and that history, plus the fact that, what Karl Marx had explained, that the prevailing idea of every society is the ideas of the ruling class. The majority of what Marx was talking about, aside the education structures, aside the historical perspectives, is also the issue of the press, the media. The ruling class controlled the media. And so we should raise Sahara Reporters being one of the first major online media, and probably the largest and the widest read media all across Africa. Get it? With Sahara Reporters, his words became much more boom. Whatever he says goes on Sahara Reporters. Over 2-3 million people are reached. You get it? Marx became popular with raised his tone when he was in Germany. So the press to contend against the prevailing idea was needed, and so Sowore was in a pole position as somebody who kept on fighting. You get it, and didn't even move to the ruling class side.
Yeah.
Somebody who also had the media strength, and also somebody who was also ultimately very close to the students and the youth movement. And so we moved to join, because he was also very open to saying that, comrades, I remember when we had about 2-3 meetings with the civil society and the left in Nigeria. One of those meetings was led by Femi Falana and moderated. We agreed to go in because he had already created not only a global movement of the Take It Back movement, which he had already led in terms of initiative, where we had all of the fighting forces. Also, he was also able to engineer one of the very fastest ways of registering a left political party, getting a left political party registered. And so that was just 2 big platforms, which we had been looking for, the movement and a party. And so I remember him saying that the left should come taking it over and transform such movement and such party. And so it was the reason why we as the Socialist Workers Youth League officially joined the African National Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've been active before we officially joined. But, I couldn't join openly because my movement, my league had not joined, my organization, my immediate organization had not joined. So when we joined, I had a chance to also be able to be part of the caravan campaign all over the country, marketplaces. I personally was in about 31 states. So as part of the collective. So that's been the work later. And then immediately after the election, we had to move into moving the party to the left because
we'll come to after the election. So this gives us already a great background to build upon. Going on the back of what you were saying in terms of Showery's invitation to the left to join the AAC, at the point at which you then openly joined. How would you characterize the ideology of the AAC today? And then to add to that, are there other international or even African movements that the AAC draws inspiration from? Basically, it would be good if you could just help us locate the AAC ideologically as it currently stands.
I think Showery answered that at the last AIT interview where he said he's socialist and welfarist. So in AAC, you have a combo of socialists and welfarists. And yes, it's just like the African socialists, who combine both welfarism and socialism. But the prevailing idea is socialism actually. But welfarism is what actually you can even explain more to the public as it is now than even saying you go into the core of socialism. But in terms of our economic perspective, it's much more socialist inclined.
What would you say the AAC's organizational base is? So to what extent, you've talked about this history of a connection between the AAC and Showery and the student movement. So how much of a base does the AAC maintain in the student movement, for example, or also the working class and informal sectors in terms of organized labor and such? Are there already associations and unions that are aligned with the party?
Yes, the TIB campus wing alone is in about 31 campuses. It's been the one leading the Fund Education Coalition and have been on the forefront of mobilizing students for the ASU strike. So it's one of those works that as a party we do. And the capacity is also in mobilizing all oppressed, uniting all oppressed together, no matter what it is. So I think very seriously that AAC is a political party that is not just doing in terms of bringing people together to say this is what is to be done, but also a political party that is moving towards the revolution and agreeing that whatever it takes to bring same to being should be explored. And so if you look at it generally, the AAC have done a lot in terms of mobilizing to the left. And if you look at it, the AAC had been the only political party that have openly collaborated and worked with IPOP. Even APGA have not been doing that openly. The AAC is the only political party that have openly collaborated and worked in defense of the Shiites. The African Action Congress has openly worked in defense of ASU strike. During the last NLC TUC protest nationally, AAC participated nationally. So in Lagos and Abuja, we were. I think I led a lot of songs, a lot of these things in Lagos here. Showery and a lot of other comrades too. Myself and comrades, some comrades here in Lagos. Showery and a lot of other comrades to joined and led in Abuja. So we have a very strong root in the Nigerian working class. We are the only political party that is saying 100,000 naira minimum wage and has consistently cared about the ideas of the working class. So,
but do you feel like the working class as such, or even workers in the informal sector, do you feel like they've responded to those overtures? Like, are there unions or particular associations that have come out backing the AAC?
Federation of Informal Workers Organizations of Nigeria is backing the AAC. So we have a situation too where a lot of working class people, you get it, who are in the informal sector are with the African Action Congress. So as it is today, where the AAC is not having what it's supposed to be having, and which is part of the illusions and distraction created by the ruling class, it's like in the NSAS movement as being the political party, the only political party that officially participated. So, and are led both in Lagos and or shown different parts of the country. So, and it's understandable. It's understandable to the extent that the Nigerian ruling class will do everything to divert Nigerians. For instance, now they are moving Nigerians from Sorosoki, which means speak louder, to obedience. Means obey, just obey. Obey every and anything. If it is from Obasanjo to Tinubu to Babangida to Abdulsalami Abubakar, just obey. So it's a way to also distract Nigerian youths and the rising tendencies and the rising tides.
Okay. I mean, we'll come back to this to some extent, the LP question, which you've touched upon in that response. But I just wondered if there's anything else you want to add in terms of affiliations, because, and the organizational strength of AAC, because, a political party is only as strong as its alliances, right? So, I mean, you've talked about FI1 and such, but in terms of the working class unions in the formal sector, do you feel like AAC has much support there?
As you know, both there is the Labour Party, and both the TUC and the NSC have said openly the Labour Party is their party, but they have not endorsed it or bit. So it's an open-ended thing, But we can talk more of FI1 endorsing practically the African Action Congress. We can also talk more of the fact that in the 36 states of the country, we have structures. We have strong structures as much as having one of the strongest gubernatorial candidates in Sokoto. We have comrades contesting in Adamawa. We have one of the leading gubernatorial candidates in Taraba. We have in Benue, Dr. Obe is one of the leading candidates there. We have in the East, Abia, Enugu. We have in Rivers. We have one of the leading candidates in Akwa Ibom. In the Southwest, we are in Lagos. We are probably one of the leading candidates too, because the Labour Party does not have a candidate as far as we are concerned. So, what we are saying is that the party is rooted in the unity of all the oppressed, and also too, we are also very close to the Shiites. We are close to all IPOB. We are close to Yoruba Nation. We are close to everybody fighting, because we believe that people have a right to self-determination. So what we are calling on all of them is that it's not just to divide Nigeria, it's to unite everybody. And during the North is Bleeding period, we were the ones who mobilized all over the North to charge youth to join the North is Bleeding protest. Many of those comrades were recruited into our political party, and many of them have been very active. So all across, in Katsina State, in a lot of states, we have presence. In Kano State today, we are going to be having a Kano rally very soon. And it's great to open everybody eye will just clear. Clear. We know we just talk 1 million, but we do 100 people. No.
Okay.
And it. Yes. Because we have tested this, we have tested the microphone severally from 2019 to today with the Revolution Now protest. We've gotten the country on a standstill anytime we call action nationally. When we called in August 5, 2019, we were able to have 56 towns and cities in Nigeria to do political action. So we in 2020, we repeated it in 2021 from October 1 to August 5. We were the ones who showed political capacity in October 1, 2020, when the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress had betrayed Nigerians. By 28th and 29th, they had betrayed Nigerians already. We in the African Action Congress, the Take It Back movement, and the Coalition for Revolution showed national capacity in October 1. And with that national capacity, we were able to give the youths to say, oh, we can even do it. When revolution now can do it, we can do it. So these are structures that are not going to just be sleeping. That's why we are not shouting. We just will look at it, okay. You know, many of these during the EndSARS, we are not surprised. Many of all the noises you see on Twitter, many of those people shouting it during the EndSARS, they were in their house shouting all those noises. We were the ones who were on the field. So we know how it will be now. You know, the jump would not mature, and we showed it during Occupy Lekki toll gate. How many of them were able to come out? Our comrades were the ones arrested everywhere. We were the ones who went to court to release all those comrades. Were they arrested? None of these people could come out except Mr. Macaroni. Rinu and Co were only shouting behind their keyboard. So all those things you find. Yes, we were the ones who led Occupy Lekki toll gate. I had the debate with Defend Lagos in front of our Lekki toll gate there, with all the snipers, everything, and guns. No, we didn't fear. So
it'll be like action film.
That's what it now.
Yeah, so
when the campaign starts, people will see it now.
That's in fact the kind of work that you people have been doing, man. It's really, really, like commendable, because we see all these things. We see the legal suits that the comrades get into, and then the lawyers mobilize to do what they're supposed to do. But you mentioned a lot of candidates. This is out of my own personal curiosity before I move into my own questions. What's up with Caroline Danjuma? What is that?
Ideological... You mean the real Nigerian housewife?
Yeah. So I want to know, is she on an ideological plane? Because that choice was sort of, I don't know.
I was as shocked as you, because she had not been a member of our party before. Right. But she was in the AANRP. Okay.
Is that Trotskyist?
No. It was the one led by Tope Fasua. Then there were a lot of political parties created in 2019 to show that they were radical and youths were moving to those places. But when the push comes to shove and to say who can really lead the youth against Buhari, none of them will come out now. Now only our party will come out. So everybody they don't come align.
So she's officially recognized.
Yes, they have moved down to say, AAC now be the party with the radicals dey. Radicals in YPP.
Recognized by AAC. That's what you're saying.
Yes, now at least she even raised a lot of things about Shure, saying that she's a model and in the celebrity world, but that even in the celebrity world she's very radical, just like Shure.
Okay. So I just wanted to get out of the way. So let me get into my own questions, which you sort of answered. You mentioned about the Gramscian cultural hegemony thing, the Marxist idea, ruling classes idea, being the ideas, of the people that they are dominating over. So I want to ask, what would you say is standing in the way or barring people from gravitating towards, AAC's revolutionary politics with these distractions that we're having? Why is revolution, not the thing that is dominant in our discourse? Why is it that we have these illusions? How has the ruling class been able to pull this off again? Or why are they being able to pull it off now in front of us?
Yes, it's easier. Thank you so much. That question is very lovely. And I think that I can describe that question. That there is a time that 100 years of history happens in just a day. You get it. So I always love to use the classical EndSARS period. The first 3 days it was Rinu and Co that were leading in Lagos. Shure and other people were leading in Abuja. Shure was in charge of the protest for the first 3-4 days, as the leading person. So in Lagos, when Lagos became the epicenter of the EndSARS protest, especially the Alausa barricade. Rinu and others went to sign agreements, which we felt that they were already commercialized, about 115 points, with Obasa, and they didn't even consult the Congress. So the Congress moved against them. Automatically, our comrades took over that leadership with strong celebrities like Small Doctor And so, but in Abuja, where our comrades were leading, they went there to instigate open blackmail against Showore that he wants to hijack the protest from NSAS to revolution now. Why? It was because as at that time, the NSAS protest is learning from its forebears in terms of revolutionary action in Nigeria. From January 2012, you get it, protests against fuel subsidy removal, to several protests of the student movement to the June 12th, because the devolution of power, the issue of the leadership of the protest is why it was easy for NSA and TUC to just cut off the protest in 2012. So youths who were leading that protest were saying, no, we can't just hand over. And they've seen in NAMS, they've seen in student movement, they felt, we can't just, and the betrayal was almost immediate in September 28 and 29. So it was easy to throw any dust of distrust around all those black men. In Lagos, when we saw that that was going to happen, we devised the means. We took away all emblems of the revolution now. I said, comrades, let's just go to the field. Let's go and do the work. Let's go and do this thing without the emblem. People on their own will come back to talking about revolution. Lo and behold, I think even to the end of that thing, more people were going to do revolution now shirts, because it was our revolutionary shirt that people were sleeping on. So people were wearing it on their own. It became to the state that on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th day, you get it, the revolution now action became much more powerful because people started talking about revolution more, started talking about end bad governance. People were not even talking more about NSAS anymore. So that's one of the reasons why the ruling class had to also drown the protest in blood. And what I'm saying, using that as an example, is that there is a general distrust of leadership in the country. People are afraid, and there's this general maxim. Now all of us, now they cause all of us get hand for there. Now where did they work? Where did they shop? We know even talk. Say, man, still when you reach there, but at least do something. Whereas they don't know, say, if you don't steal, you know if you do anything. Yes, now to do something, I will say you don't want to steal. So it's a general contradiction. You can even look at it. Let me give you a very classical example. Do you know that as brilliant as Nigerians are, the Nigerian ruling class, for our whole eye like this, they say they are doing devaluation of Naira. That means say they devalue Naira. Do you believe that until Naira got to 500, so people were still openly defending devaluation? Till date, some intellectuals who claim that they study economics, they will still say that it's not good for the Naira to fall. But what is needed is complete devaluation of the Naira.
So are we saying that there's like an illusion, to the people? Like, there's active illusion to
yes, the active
away.
illusion is even much more, is that I've seen professors arguing against the fall of Naira, arguing for production, but still saying there should be complete devaluation of the Naira. It's because there is this stronghold of neoliberalism having been able to dictate the curriculum of debtor countries like Nigeria. So it's an in-depth education issues that needs very radical, that's why it was easy when we said revolution. We had to back it with action. It was those actions that gravitated people massively towards us. That's why I said when the campaign game comes to a stage, it will not be what it is. And if you look at the tide, it's reducing because the tide is being tested on the field. The obedient that are causing the distractions, the delusions, are now going to the field. And people are now seeing their leader going to, hobnob with Obasanjo, people that people really hated with Moses. So very soon you will see the tide changing itself. And what is very unique about this election is that for the first time, and I think those who wrote the electoral act didn't even know the implications, it's taking about 7-8 months before the election. So it gives time for the several ears to move, several waves to move, several tides to move. For me, yes. Yeah. So what we will need is now to work more on praxis, to work more on organizing. If Showore comes by September 5 to Lagos and is being able to be received by about 10,000 or 5,000 people, the obedience will say, okay, game just begin. You know, it will now be in who knows how to mobilize the most. And you don't mobilize in this period of several distrust. Several people have gone to take their PVC. Most of those people have gone backward to now say, okay, who do we now vote for? You know, so there is for the first time. Yes,
this is probably taking us to like
what you are having that is the distraction today is the handiwork of the PDP youth vanguard that followed Obi from PDP.
So okay, this will the action that's going to come after, you know, this wave that you talked about will be hinged on structures.
Yes.
You know, and we are fully aware of the Take It Back movement, the Coalition for Revolution, and all that, you know. But, you know, for example, in other states, what are the specific strategies, you know, that the AAC is employing to deepen its reach in all these local communities? Like, what other, you know, strategies are you know, looking towards, for these communities to bore the, you know, party's influence and then maybe lead to some sort of victory, at least, you know, in all these states that you've mentioned, because it's a big picture for us. You know, so
yes, one of our strategies is, first and foremost, I think by September ending, we would have collated our operation three volunteers per unit. That one would have been done. And you know, we have this particular strength because for the past 3 years of the revolutionary struggles, we have collaborated with community organizations in the battle for electricity. We have collaborated with, we have deepened work with the civil society. You know, if you look at it in Delta State, we have one of the strongest civil society activists. Comrade Agogo is still in prison today for fighting child trafficking. So those works are works that we have used to connect community by community, towns by towns, villages by villages, and cities too. So in other parts of the country, and I told you, for instance, in the north, we have been able to collaborate with Shiites, we have been able to collaborate with radical Muslims, we have been able to collaborate with people who fought during North is Bleeding, we have been able to collaborate with Southern Kaduna People's Union, collaborate with the thieves and the Idomas, the Ogojas in Benue, who have been fighting on herdsmen attacks. You know, we have led our collaboration all over the country. So what we are saying is that in each of those states, you get it, we are going to deepen the collaboration with civil society, deepen the networking with community organizations, and also then go on with what we have been doing together, working together, translating from the mass actions, moving activism from activism to power. You know, we are not going to be stopping our activism for the sake of the election. No, we have taken the movement as in a two-way strategy of either the ballot or the revolution. So the revolution may come even before the ballot, during the ballot, or after the ballot. So it's a tidal wave that our movement have been working on. And if you look at it, if they say NSC calls the protest, we massify there. If NSC does not do the protest, we do our own protest. So it's been strategies of by any means necessary. Yes, by any means necessary, where the people are fighting mobilized. You know, today we missed a protest where Okada people are fighting in Lagos. By tomorrow, our comrades would have been around getting them to discuss, relating with them. By Wednesday, rebel drivers in Lagos, we are going to be with them, work with them. So it's a way of uniting all the oppressed. And you know, oppressed people for Nigeria, they are over 150 million. And we believe that this election will be tough to the stage that even before the election, the ruling class for the surrender.
Yeah, I think the quote we're trying to remember at that time was that Lenin's quote, where there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. Yeah. So, you know, we understand that there's a phase before the election, during the election, and even after the election. And we know that political education and the proliferation of revolutionary message is key. Yes. Looking during this period, we know that, you know, there's reporters on the side of, for revolutionary message and all. You know, even after the elections and during the elections, what plans do you have, you know, for continued political education? Something like, you know, grassroots political education, on the media political education, internet political education and all that, so that even when this action does not happen, this revolution that we so desire does not happen, before the election, will it direct us, towards during the election and maybe even after the election? So what I'm asking in a nutshell is that what's the plan for political education, for coherent political education by the AAC?
Yes, we've started already. If you look at it, we are taking over the Twitter spaces. I just spoke on the cable Twitter space on ASU strike, and our ideas won to the extent that almost all the students now agree with us that there should be a student-worker collaboration, student and lecturers collaboration for a national protest. And so we are also going to be bridging those students to work with ASU to call for a national protest. And I'm sure Moyele Jore will be leading that in Abuja, will be leading here in Abuja, in Lagos, and a lot of other places. We are going to be showing Nigerian people that we have the political capacity, to take over. And aside that, we are going to be moving in every week. Our branches all over the country are going to be visiting marketplaces, visiting women organizations to share leaflets in dialects, leaflets in local languages, leaflets in Pidgin, English, and even in English. So we are putting all of these strategies in the place for public education. And aside that too, people are going to be talking, going to be doing what we call house to house. In that house to house, we ask you to say, okay, in your area, map out how many houses. If it is 50 houses, divide it for the next 10 days. This is 5 houses per day. Even if it is after work, you can visit 2 before work, visit 3 after work. So it's a way we are maximizing our communities working. And like I told you, the strategy of having 3 volunteers per unit means that you have to go to talk to people street by street, house to house, educate them and bring them on. And that's why we have been able to set the standard and others are following for this election. We have been able to be the only ones coming up with a very clear-cut manifesto, and if you check our spaces on Twitter, despite all the buzz, their own violence and all of that, they have not been able to take us on. You get it? None of them, whether it's APC, PDP, or the Fidesz team, in the Labour Party, none of them have been able to take us on. Yes, yeah.
Comrade, I know Mimaka, who has been silently plotting in the background, is about to jump in. Yeah. But before he does, can I fire one last question, which is this? You've talked about the variety of non-electoral struggles that AAC gets involved in. This is one of the distinguishing features of AAC, Take It Back, and CORE, which are affiliated movements, right? Is that It's not simply electoralist in its strategy, but in fact it's revolutionary,
multi-pronged
in its own understanding, meaning it's pursuing this political change at multiple levels. But wouldn't you say that there's also a downside to that approach, which is that, 2 things. One, symbolically, the movement then seems like it's kind of chasing hashtags, so to speak. Some critics will say, well, what is this really about? Isn't it just about everything? And then besides the symbolic level, practically, doesn't that risk actually exhausting the energy, creativity, and the talent of all these comrades all around the country who have to move, in effect, from one protest to the other on a week-by-week basis? So how do you address these possible drawbacks of having that kind of multi-pronged strategy, both the symbolic one and the practical, possibility of burning out your own cadres?
Well, I think that this question you've asked, it reminds me of the assertion of Professor Olorode recently when we visited him in Abuja. He said, "You guys are magicians." The thing is that to multitask is just a strategy that we have also learned from the modern day Nigerian. You can hardly find a modern day Nigerian today that is on one job. Yeah. Plenty jobs. We even find bankers themselves, tickets, POS, far side. You get that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You still get bankers, still get farm, still get different things.
So
we are in a Nigeria where there is mass unemployment, and there is enough time to sleep, and so we need to maximize any of this time. So it's been a strategy that worked very effectively, and I think that it also helps with the maxim that it is praxis that builds people. If you check the debating, if you take an average obedient to debate with, you take it back. The obedient will, at the end of the day, just say, rest abeg, una leader na SUD president. In Jesus' name, let your red come down. They will just say, activists cannot be clean. They won't be able to come to issues because the 3 years of action have taught us. That was why I was alluding to learning. It has taught us several things. It showed when even when we supported the Yoruba Nation people's protest in Lagos here, police officers, they recognized us and they recognized the Yoruba Nation people, because those ones, they went to bring plenty jazz and think that to lead protests is to have plenty jazz. Police officers, they practically were beating them, chasing them everywhere. Whereas they couldn't do it to us. Our comrades were on ground and we're still telling them, you have no right to touch them. They just
some materialist approach.
Yes. Police officers will just look at us and say, troublesome people. But they will go and beat the people that are carrying jazz. In fact, the one that was an Ogoni man that was very big, that was carrying plenty jazz and was making him out in front of us. When they started beating him, we were the ones who struggled that they shouldn't carry him away. But they didn't arrest any of our comrades. As plenty as we were there. Why? Was because they saw that for the first time, some people who were having illusions were in protest alongside some materialists. They know that if it is us alone, they would waste more bullets than that day. They would have to use tear gas and a lot of that. But they felt that these ones, let's just bring Kondo and Koboko with hot water. We'll beat a lot of their body. So it's to also show how advanced we have been on the soldiering side, and that's what an average soldier is supposed to be. Supposed to know how to crawl when you get to a place that is too low. You know how to jump when you are getting to a place that is high. You know how to discuss when it's time to negotiate. You know how to educate people when it's time to educate. Maneuver when you are supposed to do so. So and that's the kind of strategy that we have adopted, and it has worked for us. So take it back, and now it's like 1,000 obedience. That's the only way we can defeat the Nigerian ruling class.
All right, Comrade Wizeman, it's been nice listening to you about how you see the AAC, right, vis-a-vis. It's place within the body policy of Nigeria, especially during this period, in the lead up to the election. But I'm really interested in the question of structures, and coalitions, So I just linger there, if you don't mind, for a little bit. Especially, with this lovely banter that members of the AAC seem to have, with the obedience. For me, there's a way to read it as a bit of rivalry, if you ask me.
Sure. That's what the elections are about.
Yeah, and so I like to listen to critique, So I think that there are a few of them who would say, that they also have structures, or that they are building structures right now, and that they are doing it in real time, and that one of the things that counts for them, as in terms of advantage, would be the 6, 7, 8 month period between when candidates emerge and the election proper. So how would you, for me, respond to critique along the lines that say that maybe AAC is best served, if it goes and then contest election in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe half a dozen states, and then that way people then get to see what they're about, or what, Sowore is about, in that regard. Because that's always been the larger, basically the more recurrent critique, that Sowore hasn't been tested in any capacity in terms of leading, and that's what they mean when they say it's not, to rule Nigeria is not about student activism, and then there are certain people who, agree with them. So, I mean, how would you respond to, generally in terms from broad perspective of structures and how you build them, perhaps what would be rides on, this phenomenon, this would be phenomenon itself, why it seems quite interesting and a bit infectious to, maybe people along a certain ideology. But we must agree, at least as a starting point to this conversation, is that they are the people whose ideology would sway are in the majority, and that we who probably think, he's neoliberal, nothing will change even if he comes into power, we're in the minority. So, I mean, I think that's one place to start this conversation from. But, just so that I don't take too much time, posing the question, how would you respond to their own critique of, I mean, I don't think it's something that should just be waved off like that,
I think they cannot be a judge in their own case. Yes, because it's their own tactics of campaigning, and our own tactics will also be that if you've tested somebody in the class and the person has failed, why are you even upgrading the person to another class? You are only going to destroy the class system. So when Obi has failed as
I thought we were all about destroying the class system.
Yes,
I'm joking. No, I know what you mean. I'm joking. Don't mind me.
Yes, I understand you too. But if we want to first destroy the class system, there must also be the reign of the oppressed class first.
But history doesn't say that it has to first be the oppressed class. I mean, there have been cases, numerous cases where the revolution has been bourgeois revolution, even before. I mean, so that's why it's an interesting rivalry, from just my own point as somebody who is observing, history play out, because if you ask the average guy on the street, who are the top contenders, for for the election, I don't think that any one of them would mention. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find people who would mention Sowore as even fought.
Yes, in 2019, people mentioned Mogalu, Fela Durotoye before Sowore. In fact, in churches, they were dancing Mogalu, they were dancing Durotoye. Durotoye was even like a pastor, had several followers, they were making him out. But with our experience of radical activism, being able to be well-bred on the streets, we know where to mobilize now. We had more votes than all of them together. Combine Mogalu with Durotoye.
But comrade, the combined vote of Sowore, Mogalu, and all these other, even COA, was, I mean, it couldn't have swayed the election either way between PDP and APC in 2019. So yes, it's not about, I mean, what we're saying here is in terms of the wave, right? I think it's, listening to you, the impression that I get is that you just wave off, the opposition, and that, it's they don't matter,
they matter.
As far as I'm concerned,
that's why I'm analyzing them.
They have the numbers, if you ask me.
Are you sure?
That's, if you ask me on my own personal impression, that they have, even obedience, they have the numbers. I mean, it's not even contestable that PDP and APC have more numbers than AACs. That's not even in contest.
Yes, that's not in contest. But what I'm telling you is this. When you look at these numbers and look at party membership, you then look at how are they going to use it to pull what is the strength in terms of really pulling the mass? I give you an example of Osun State election. I was on ground. Both PDP had close to about 500,000 votes or so, or about 400,000 votes. The whole of PDP in Osun State is not more than 30,000. The whole of PDP in Osun State is no more than 10.
So they're buying votes,
Yes.
And that's what the ruling class do, because it's also.
What I'm also saying is also that aside buying votes, it's not about buying votes. It's also about advertisement. The people decide more. Most of the people that go to really vote are not members of any political party. If you look at the Osun election, people were getting money to go to vote. Yet they were voting. So there is an audience, a mass audience that is saying we want to vote. We saw it in Osun. If you look at the last election in Osun and this election, there is about 70% rise in people who voted. So that shows you that there is.
I don't get that. Are you saying that voter turnout for the Osun election was in the 70% region?
Is a with what is on ground as it is now, with the work that the AAC has been doing so far.
Okay.
It becomes very people to our side massively. You understand? It's easier.
You know why? You know why I stress this? I stress this because even as just being, someone who reads up on history, right? I kind of get the feeling that if we've ever been here before, where we are now as a country in terms of how bad things are, how much people hope that, getting it right at, the ballot would help change things or change the course of, how the country is headed. That the time that most mirrors this for me personally, and I might be wrong, is 79. Where if so, some of the similarities between this period and that period was that there were a slew of protests, from even the Udoji Awards, all sorts of protests leading up to the 79 election. And that as far as the left itself was concerned, they were all divided, And that's why I'm stressing even these coalitions, in that sense, there was that division. You even have it mirrored up to the point that in the lead up to the election, you had a presidential candidate who was of the Eastern extract in Nnamdi Azikiwe. You had one from the Yoruba extract who was Awolowo. You then had the guys from the NPN. It mirrors that for me, But in that same election, you had the PRP, right? And for some reason, the PRP managed to get 2 states. And
yes.
2 states in the part of the country where people always assume, or the popular consensus is that they are backward, which is in the northern part of Nigeria.
Nowadays, so it also depends what people you're talking about. So I'm just saying,
but on an average, that's what. No, I'm saying on an average, that's what you get if you're listening. Of course, you need to check what the demography is, but it seems to me that that's what it's misinformed. Yes, but it's what people tend to believe. But it's what's interesting is that these things came. These results came from the north. Or from Kaduna and Kano, So I wonder, if the AAC has this sense that, what we might just be at this juncture too, and if there are plans to listening to you, I think, maybe you've even answered the question because you mentioned that you have gubernatorial contestants in Sokoto.
Yes, in several states, about 21 states.
So I guess that kind of answers the question. That means that you're well placed to take those states, and use them as models,
Yes, and the other we have is also that those states, unlike the wave we're talking about, those states are our comrades contesting. You understand? Not feeder steam people from different parties. That's one of the issues. If you have a situation where it is feeder steam people contesting, you might not get any votes. I will give you clear examples. Kingsley Moghalu went the same route in 2019. He was so popular because he had people like Ifeanyi Ubah contesting as senator too. But both of them are from the same senatorial district. How was it that in the same election, on the same senatorial district, on the same day, Ifeanyi Ubah emerged as a senator and Kingsley Moghalu did not even win a unit? And that's what we find in the Labour Party candidature everywhere. In Lagos here, it's been turned between Professor Wamaridi, who is more of like a pseudo-leftist. You find people like GRV Rose Bible, who is from PDP, who is a PDP light. You find Salvador, who is from APC. At the end of the day, all of them are on one confusion day. You will just see that the whole of the noise will go and won't be actualized. But we have been able to have a situation where it is our comrades contest. In Lagos, you find Akim Olayiwola contesting. He has been a member of the party since 2018. You find Benezi as deputy governorship candidate, has been a member of the party. And for the first time, we are having people contesting to know that Lagos is a cosmopolitan city. These experiences have been there. The experience of how to garner the votes, how to get people to actually vote. It's not just about the noise, it's about getting people to actually do it in a structural manner, state by state. And just like I told you, we have a governorship candidate making waves in Sokoto. We have in a lot of the parts of the country making waves. We have Bondo Nuche who might even win in Abia State. All of them working within the structure and the nature of the party. So even if you have a wave and it is not pinned down in terms of working in all of the structures from presidency to state level, it's all this thing. In Osun, they were able to get more votes a bit because Lasun Yusuf on the day of election also did vote buying. And he was a member of House of Reps and not the rest. And even INEC finally didn't recognize the real candidate of the AAC due to the court case we had before. But to cut it all short, the difference was just like about 300 votes. You get it? And I saw it on the day of election. Many of the people were shouting, let me shout at people, I will vote for Adeleke. You know that? So it is all the same thing that will happen. We understand the electoral terrain. We understand that election is it's unlike you want to have a protest where people have a one go and go towards it. But the election itself, that's why the agent system is very important. If on election day, this person is the most popular in this area and does not have an agent in the unit, his candidates, his voters will be canvassed away. So you need to tie all of these things together and network all of these things to be able to win electorally. If we are even talking electorally, that's why these structures are very important. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think we're on the same page, now, because this probably leads me to, especially, when you give the example using Andy Ubah and, Moghalu. The example I like to give, to make this difference is that even for the presidential elections in 2019, the difference between Atiku and Buhari in Lagos State, for instance, was maybe like 100,000 votes.
Yes.
Whereas in the gubernatorial election, PDP was just no match for APC within.
At all.
So that says to me that voting attitudes would vary depending on who is on the ballot or
And let me also tell you a classical example into what you have raised too. Do you know that the insight into it is also beyond what you have raised? The insight to it is also that in Lagos since 2003, after the death of Funsho Williams, people that have always been contesting against Guba candidates in Lagos have always been this thing. What do I call it? They have always been surrogates. So there is this surrogate candidature system too. And that's why you find Peter Obi nearly die in front of Atiku, almost kissing him too. So there is the surrogate system. You will find the situation Jimmy Agbaje will shout. When it comes to disbursing his agents and all of that, he runs away. And so all of them are God. As a surrogate candidate, it happened recently in Ekiti. The guy contesting against Oyebanji was a surrogate candidate. Fayose had already compromised him. So, but the people will shout. On the day of election, the party will not do anything. So the gap will be so wide. Jimmy Agbaje had been a surrogate candidate 2 times in Lagos, just like Obani Koro had been. The current gender that is even contesting in PDP is a surrogate. So it's the surrogate system that is easy on that day election. They would have paid him before election date. So he wouldn't disburse agents, wouldn't communicate with his party, and nothing. So they will get frustrated and go sit back. And then there's also the wave of the fact that if you lose the presidency and you don't have somebody who believes in that idea can be moved up. Most people who voted in the presidency might not come to vote in the governorship.
Yeah, that's what I would think, myself,
But the surrogate one is the worst.
Okay, but just to wrap it up, from this end before any of my comrades take it from. I hope that you're the right person to ask, or that you can give us some insight. If there's any sense in the AAC, that one of the outcomes in the forthcoming election might force, a runoff, and how, if this is something that is being thought about, how strategically, is the AAC looking to respond to that kind of eventuality?
Yes, that's why we are happy that
I haven't finished. I don't know how this will sit with you. So the reason why I ask is there a future, after a runoff or during the runoff, where we might see a coalition between, say, the AAC and the Labour Party?
Yes, we are looking to a situation that, because we know very much that we are going to be defeating the Labour Party very well in the election. And it will get to a stage that the Labour Party, Peter Obi, we see a situation where Peter Obi himself, as a surrogate candidate, would want to direct his arsenals to Atiku. But because of the hardline, radical nature of the obedience, many of them would go for the more radical candidate in our election. And that's why we keep engaging them. So for us, that force will come together when it gets too close to election. When they see him even frustrating at the needs of the ruling class, and before then, the APC people would have been massively bastardized. I see the APC coming distant thought, and
really,
when it's yes, the battle is between Showore and Atiku plus Obi, but minus obedience. Because what it means is that the obedience will be defeated to a point that all of them will look at, there is no hope in Obi. It would be like the Zik and the Zikists. So yes, Obi will just betray them close to the election, but they will not look for the radical alternative. That's why we are the one waiting. We are waiting at that podium. We are there. And that's why we are happy that as a very revolutionary candidate, openly socialist, openly welfarist, in the first 4 candidates in the country today, we are one of them.
Comrade, I hear your critique of Obi, or maybe not Obi as a person, because I like to distinguish between Obi himself and the movement, or the obedience, who some would say have built a cult following around, Obi, to use the Zikist, analogy again. But isn't that a charge that would carry some weight if it were laid at the feet of Showore, for instance, and say that people have built a cult-like following around Showore? and that in fact that's perhaps is what is most of the turnoff for people who would want to keep a distance from the AAC.
No, it's not true. In fact, the fear is that Sowore is not even having illusions. It's not an illusion. The anger of the ruling class is that Sowore is a reality. You know, the Nigerian ruling class has a style of presenting this David versus Goliath intra-class electoral jingoism so far. You know, they did it with Yar'Adua. Yar'Adua didn't have the match of Atiku's money, nor did he have the match of Buhari history. Obasanjo presented him as a David versus Goliath, and he won. He presented Jonathan later on as a David versus Goliath of I have no shoes, and he won. And Buhari too was also later presented as a David versus Goliath that he had to also be going to protest. You get it? So we are going to change that because Nigerians are not even going to be looking at that again. And that's why I told you that as it is now, Sowore himself is somebody who does not say have illusions in me. So, you know, Peter Obi, if he says, if Sowore today goes to the press and say, go and verify, it will be AAC members that will first say, what are you saying, comrade? What kind of rubbish is that? Say it. If you know you are not prepared, why are you going to the press? You know, we will blast him openly and even face to face. You understand? But if it is the obedience and they say go and verify, they will say God has settled it.
Yeah, so
and that's why it was easy for yes, no, I never do that. It was easy for Erufai to tell them, Erufai, small Erufai, small nyash where they shake. He tell them say they should know protest in Kaduna, and all of them chickened out. They were now saying Erufai chickened out. Who chickened out? Can Erufai try it with AAC? He will just put it on Twitter that my dear friend Shelley Sowore, please tell your comrades not to be violent. Tell them to be law-abiding. Because he knows that if he tries to stop it, you can turn the protest to 5 days. So it's about capacity. And that's why I'm happy with the Christianization of Nigeria when they took Sowore's position and they said, as he asked it, to say, we need somebody with character, we need somebody with competence, we need somebody with capacity, and we need somebody with policies. You know? This four mantra is embedded in AAC, take it back, and our work so far in the coalition for revolution. So I think that when it comes to that situation of Nigerians uniting, anything that you know that it is even a big headache to the Nigerian ruling class. That's why you see that they go under Sowore's tweet every time to say, join PO, join Peter Obi, rest abeg, rest in Jesus' name. Some even are even prone to say rest in the name of Amadioha too very soon. You know? Because they felt that if this guy continued to be on this podium for the next 3 months like this, as one of the first, very soon Peter Obi will go down, or any of them, or maybe Tinubu may not even be able to walk again. Now, because he's even losing his ability to talk now.
Well, comrade, I mean, we're just about getting around to wrapping up. I think we've found a lot of grounds to agree on, to disagree on, and to laugh about. So it's probably a decent place to wrap up, particularly since it sounds like in saying APC is likely to come third. It sounds like third. The
battle is between AAC and PDP.
Yeah, it sounds like
PDP light would have dissolved their feeders team to go and support the feeders team.
It sounds like you pointed to the strength of PDP and Atiku, and Atiku happens to be a huge fan of our show. So I guess that's
he's very strong now because he has been able to disrupt the South. The way Tinubu has disrupted the North.
No, actually, I mean, we're not doing our bets yet. We will do bets on the whole Nigerian left to see how we can collect money from the left.
But
Sowore will defeat him, because Nigerians don't want to hand over to somebody who will sell Nigeria.
Anyway, I'll say my money is on Atiku at the moment.
And we are sure that and, it will be easier for us if the battle is against Atiku more, because if it's Tinubu and he sees that he has a chance to win with 1 million votes, he will start killing people. He will start shooting our communists more.
Yeah,
Atiku is more of life. Is a fearful capitalist. So Atiku might likely travel to Dubai before the election day.
Just go chill out and max out.
Listen, before we wrap up, is there anything you want to advise our listeners to read or listen to get more information about the AAC or your own work, or anything worth plugging here, or particularly in terms of upcoming actions or that sort of thing?
Yes, I'm on tweet. I tweet at Ajayi Wizeman. And if you want to listen more to our ideas of the AAC, go to www.aacparty.org, www.aacparty.org, and then you want to listen more to the campaign jingles, campaign songs, campaign talks, videos of Amoyele Showre. Just go to showre2023.org. And then we have our handles everywhere: Take It Back Movement, and Take It Back Movement, and African Action at AAC Party on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. And you can find our comrades every corner where we go, because every time I will shout every corner. Police is there, we self don't turn out to every corner. Our TV is there, comrades
all
is there.
time.
Yes. So we are going to be taking them corner by corner, street by street. Mokuna no fear say because she will never become anything before. No. All the people will not be activists, will not be governor, will not be, look at Buhari example now. He had done virtually everything from minister to governor. Now only legislature alone, he never served.
Senator Buhari.
Senator, everything where he don't do, where Buhari don't do for this life. But at the end of the day, when he got to government, he even handed over he almost handed over to the government to bandits. Maybe he still hand it over to ISWAP.
Well, I'm happy you raised the bandit question, because our next episode is actually on bandits. So I think that's a perfect place probably to wrap up.
Yeah. Yes.
But comrade, thank you very much for your time and for your very interesting and sarcastic and
perspectives.
Sometimes prophetic intervention.
Emphatic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can speak to you again down the line as the campaign develops and even beyond that.
Anytime, comrade. It's a pleasure. It's a great pleasure. Thank you so much, Emeka. Thank you so much.
Thank you, comrade.
Right,
Nice.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. That bottle in place.